Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the high point of the opening ceremony. It's the point where we hear from the keynote speaker, who is a distinguished gentleman par excellence. Please, I want to welcome to the podium before he speaks, and I read a brief citation of Professor Bart Nnaji, NNOM, Commander of the Order of the Niger. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, his name actually is Bartholomew Nnaji. He's a Nigerian engineer, not just holding the engineering profession, but one who practices appropriately. He's an innovator and one of the investors of the e-design concept. That, in the script, is where you need to clap. Please clap for him. This man hails from southeast Nigeria, Enugu State precisely. He went through his education in Nigeria. Yes, Enugu people, please do it well, do it well. You should be happy. If you want to stand to do it, go ahead. He hails from southeast Nigeria, but he's also a diasporan, having studied in different universities. He's a researcher. He focused on three major topics: computer-aided design, robotics, and computer-aided engineering. Using the knowledge he gained from his research pursuit, he adopted the term geometric reasoning, the idea that most things we operate have a geometric configuration. He later became the Minister of Power in this country. When you think Nnaji, you think power. You need to clap for him. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker is a seasoned technocrat, a distinguished gentleman per excellence. He is one that always thinks about a better Nigeria. Please welcome to the podium, distinguished Professor Bartholomew Nnaji, NNOM, Commander of the Order of the Niger. Honorable, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to start by saluting His Excellency, Mr. President, and the Vice President, ably represented here by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished members of the National Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be in the midst of my colleagues from diaspora, my natural constituency. I thank the chairman of Nigerians in the Diaspora Commission, the Honorable Dr. Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erawa, for inviting me. Her determination and focus to improve our fatherland is self-evident, and so many of the speakers here have spoken about her passion, and she truly has made it possible for Nigerians in diaspora to become part of the equation in our development. I imagine that she invited me to speak because of my background. I was from 1977 to 2005, one of the millions of Nigerians in the diaspora. I went to the United States, like many Nigerians, for a university education, and later stayed back to conduct research and teach in American universities. But for the long years I lived abroad, I made every effort not to lose consciousness of my culture or my origins. In fact, I was so deeply involved in Nigerian affairs that I collaborated with other Nigerians to establish the Nigerian People's Forum, which was an association of Nigerian intellectuals, professionals, and entrepreneurs in the United States. I served as its first national chairman. We brought together top Nigerian business and public figures with their counterparts in the US. The reception of one of those conferences was held in the hall of the US Congress. And would you believe it? Senator Joe Biden, who was to become the American president, got us the space in that hall. In 2000, that NPF and the Ethiopian organization held a fundraiser for presidential candidate Al Gore, who made some groundbreaking promises to Africans in the US through us. The organization later metamorphosed into Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, NIDO. In fact, the NPF legal advisor incorporated NIDO, and one of the NPF members became its first chairman. What's the point of this? Our capacity of diasporans, Nigerian diasporans, to lift us to any level. And those of you who are here from the diaspora, you have that capacity to do these things. In 1993, I came to serve as Minister of Science and Technology. When I got sworn in, I found that the ministry had been abolished by the previous military government. And all the agencies of the ministry were scattered to other ministries and agencies. It became my lot to now work with the then Attorney General to stitch together back into what you now know as Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, although innovation has been added to it. I am glad to say that since then, the ministry has not been abolished. And that's a very important issue. I took the ministerial job even when my salary as minister, and the ministers here, please listen to this one. My salary was 54,000 naira per annum, not per month, which had no relationship to my salary as a professor of engineering. And the budget of my ministry was far less than the budget of the Automation and Robotics Laboratory of the University of Massachusetts, where I was professor and the director. So you can imagine, what's the point of this? Those of us from the diaspora should not go converting what you earn abroad to our currency and vice versa. So just focus and think of what you are going to do in the country to progress. It's not about that. In 1995, I was appointed to be a member of Nigeria's Vision 2010 committee, which lasted a whole year. Every year, I would pay my way from the US to Nigeria to spend a week of meetings on planning how Nigeria could become a mid-income economy by the year 2010. I know you'll probably be laughing at us for thinking that we could achieve this objective of Vision 2010, especially now that we all know that it didn't happen. The plan was complete in all aspects, but as usual, implementation never happened. So the point here is that we don't lack capacity to plan, but it's about that implementation. And those from the diaspora who work in a place where you plan, you implement, should be part of what is happening in Nigeria, because we can deliver this. So in all this, the re-establishment of the ministry and the work of Vision 2010, I never thought of the economic benefits to myself, but rather just the opportunity to make a difference that could lead our beloved country's realization of the much vaunted potential as the giant of Africa. With the return of democratic governance in 1999, there was an opportunity to build a power plant in Abuja, what they called Abuja Emergency Power Plant, because NEPA was building a line from Shiroro to Katambe, and they needed an emergency plant. Usually, this kind of project is done by international companies. But then President Obasanjo allowed some small team of Nigerian engineers, which I worked with, to now build this 22 megawatt power plant. And during this period, the power plant ran successfully, delivering reliable electricity to the central area of Abuja, including the State House, for as long as the fuel was there. This is very important, that fuel for power plants, very important. If you have the plant, you can deliver reliable electricity. So encouraged by this achievement, this plant was was commissioned in 2001. So encouraged by this, both Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who was then new Minister of Finance, and the World Bank President, Jim Wolfensohn, asked me in 2004 to consider building a power plant in Aba for industrialists that will perform like the Abuja EPP, Emergency Power Plant. They were visiting Aba and discovered that the number one problem for moving the place to seamless production of goods is all about electricity. So what's the outcome? The result is that today, Aba enjoys better electricity than any other part of Nigeria. Although we are not yet done, we are not yet where we want to be, but we are sure that we are moving steadily to having absolute reliable electricity in the place. Some say we are celebrating 60 days of no blink of electricity and so on, but we want year on year, as it should be anywhere in the world. Lest I forget, the over $800 million Aba Integrated Power Project is the largest single investment in the Southeast. So my members of the diaspora, if we can do it, you certainly can. It is my firm belief that our sojourn overseas should benefit our nation immensely. I know many of you contribute enormously to our country's development where the figure of how much that is being remitted by the diaspora, Nigerians, is a staggering $25 billion, which compares with what we get from our crude of about $30 billion US dollars. Your remittances sustain families, school children, friends, neighbors, and others, and enable them to have 3 square meals daily, to go to hospital, to pay educational fees, to pay rents, etc. That's why many families go to great lengths to send their sons and daughters abroad, and those who are not being sent just wish to japa. But our hope is that you will begin to make the return, as can be found in other places. I share the commitment of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission that we move from remittances to significant investments in life-changing enterprises and projects on an industrial scale. China, India, and many other Asian nations are powering on today because of, among other critical reasons, the role of their overseas communities. No matter how much individual progress they have made in top institutions and companies in America and Europe, they never forget their roots. Their ability to turn around the economy of their countries is what has helped them to ensure that they do not lose their future generations to the developed world, where we typically send them to acquire better education. When American government in 2023 tightened controls on advanced chips like H100 and A100 to China to check Beijing's alarmingly scientific and technological might, Jensen Huang and his team at NVIDIA found a way to circumvent the ban by developing versions of the chip for the Chinese market. It's possible that the move was informed entirely by commercial considerations because China is the second largest economy in the world after the United States. But many people wonder if NVIDIA would have taken the huge risk of developing the chips for a non-Asian market. Huang, who is co-founder and CEO of NVIDIA, which recently became the first and only company in the world to reach the $5 trillion market capitalization, was born in Taiwan in 1963. He's an ethnic Chinese. He recently reminded President Donald Trump that Washington's efforts to check AI development in China wouldn't work because 50% of AI developers are Chinese. The Chinese often think home, like most Asians. In December 2025, Huang declared that Vietnam is NVIDIA's second home. The organizers of this summit are asking participants from the diaspora who, for any reason, cannot invest at the center to invest in their respective regions. When you invest in one part of the country, the rest of the country will benefit directly or indirectly from it. However, I cannot, in all good conscience, tell you that it will be easy if you plan to invest in our nation. If you are looking for a time when you have reliable electricity all over, pipe-borne water, beautiful roads, absolute security, then you have to consider coming to be part of delivering these. That's what it is about. Be part of the solution. Many in the diaspora look for soft landing in Nigeria. I did not have a job when I came back in 2005. In fact, I left my job as the William Kepler Whiteford Professor of Engineering and Director of the United States National Science Foundation Center of Excellence in E-Design to come to work full-time in building power projects. I initially took a leave of absence from the university, which means no pay. The University of Pittsburgh at the time retained my office, labs, secretary, and research infrastructure for 2 years in the hope that I would return. But I resigned in 2007, informing them that I will not be coming back. It is important to mention that it was because I was developing the Aba Integrated Power Project that President Jonathan sought me out to serve as his special advisor on power and chairman of Presidential Task Force on Power, and subsequently as Minister of Power. As we were developing the Aba IPP, the Aba environment was so inconducive that one of my European workers got kidnapped, and we had to rescue him after 9 days by doing the needful. And you can imagine what I mean. At one time, the banks shut down in Aba in protest over high level of insecurity. Since we had not achieved the cashless policy then, it meant that those in Aba had to go to Port Harcourt or Umahia to get cash or to do banking transaction. But we stayed through all these challenges. Today, we are celebrating good governance, better security in Abia State, and we have become a key part of the burden transformation of that region. To be a successful, thank you. To be a successful investor, you must be persistent and maintain high integrity. Lenders and equity investors must be able to look at your track record as a person and be comfortable with you. To conclude, it is the responsibility of Nigerians at home and abroad to develop our country. Some have said it before. We are the ones. It may not be easy sometimes. Most of you know the story of how our integrated power project took almost 20 years to be commissioned, instead of the typical 3 to 4 years that it would take in a normal environment. The delay was due to, actually, man-made problems, as former President Goodluck Jonathan rightly described it during his visit to our project site in 2015. But Chinua Achebe wisely told Nigerians in 1983, this is where God has, in his infinite wisdom, planted us. Echoing a similar sentiment later, General Muhammad Buhari, when he became military head of state, stated thoughtfully, we must stay here and salvage it together. Lest all Nigerians at home and abroad begin to think home more and act with a greater sense of urgency. We can all make investments in various ways, from small to medium-scale industries to large industries. You can also invest your knowledge by advising governments and private sector. You can do your due diligence and identify reputable partners abroad and those at home with whom you can form joint venture. You need those at home because those are the people who can help you to maneuver the difficult terrains. Develop thick skin to survive the shocks that may come. Do not think only of the profits. Think of the joy of being part of fundamental transformation of our dear nation into a country where foreigners would want to invest in, a country where people would want to take a vacation, where reverse medical tourism will be possible, where those our children born to first-generation immigrants would want to return and to work and to invest. You have all the ability to do this. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir. Please give him a round of applause. Professor Bart Nnaji, Nigerian National Order of Merit and Commander of the Order of the Niger, former Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Please give him another round of applause.